Welcome, everyone. My name is Tim Tang with Hughes, and today I have the privilege of speaking with Chris Andrews, the CIO of Smoothie King. Chris, welcome to our show.
Thank you, Tim. Appreciate it. Glad to be here.
Chris, if you could maybe start with telling us a little bit about your background. What prepared you for this role as CIO of Smoothie King?
Yeah, I had an interesting path to get here. I was, as an old boss said, I was a propeller head from the time I was a little kid on the internet playing checkers against kids in the early 80s. And so I've always just been around technology and probably one of the few Gen Xers that can say they grew up with technology, not like the kids today. Um, I have an undergraduate in business. I have a graduate degree, surprisingly, in public accounting. Uh, Also worked consulting for KPMG, Grant Thornton. I think that's really where I sharpened my business acumen. So I always had the tech side there, and then really I was blessed and fortunate to get an opportunity to get into restaurants in 2010, and it's been a vertical that I love, and it's got a lot of great people, and I think it has a lot of room for innovation.
It's kind of interesting. You started on the business side and then kind of moved into the technology piece of it.
Yeah, it's funny. In an interview once, CEO I was interviewing with said, "Well, why did you get out of accounting?" And I'm like, "Well, no, I was never an accountant. I just have a degree in it." And it's just I always have to explain that story to everybody.
Chris, can you tell us a little bit about Smoothie King?
Yeah, so Smoothie King, I've been here for almost 2.5 years. What really resonated with me was the mission and vision. If you go to our website, you go to our stores, you talk to anybody in the support center, they're going to tell you that we are truly a mission and vision focused company. We want to support people in their health and fitness journey. We want to be that integral part, and our products speak to it. If you go into a Smoothie King, we have, if you want to lose weight, you want to bulk up, you want to feel good, you need to get your veggies. You don't want to eat your veggies and you want to drink them. We have that there for you. And so it's a brand that really resonates with me and my family as well. And I love going to work. It's a great environment there.
When we talk about the role of the CIO, much has been said about understanding the business and having great clarity on your business objectives. Could you speak a little bit about what that means to you?
Yeah, listen, I think it starts with having a cohesive C team together. Really, your executive team, you have to be aligned. I have to know the priorities and ops and marketing, even from a finance perspective, and that's how we approach it as a team. We all sit together, we walk through, we built a house of strategy, right? And we have our different pillars and we have our tactics to support that, and each of us hear each other out, and how we can support everybody. And I think having that kind of alignment is what's helped us be successful.
When we think about some of the key roles, the CEO, the CMO, there's a lot of different backgrounds, different priorities, different agendas, even a different language. How do you navigate all that? How do you work with your peers?
Listen, I think it's spending as much time with them as possible. And this is something that I've done for a long time too. I tell my directors and then their managers, you need to create a relationship with your peer in the other departments. And so if we have that cohesiveness from level one support managers, directors up to the C level, I think we really minimize the risk of missing opportunities and not understanding our vision and where we're going. And so it's as simple to me as it's relationship building. You have to put that time in.
We're in a market context right now where it's extremely challenging to find talent. And I was wondering if you could speak to how do you, from a leadership perspective, what have you learned in terms of leading your teams? How do you motivate and how do you keep and retain your talent?
Yeah, it's been a pretty tough year. It's a tough market, especially with companies saying, "Hey, everybody's remote full time." Well, we support our restaurants, our stores, and they're out there on the front lines, and we feel like we have to be in the office as well. And that's been a difficult message, I think, to deliver to some people. But if you walk into our support center, you feel the culture, like it just spills over. And so I think that's one, is having a real culture that people feel, that you want to be there. We've even had people tell us like, hey, listen, I got an offer for more money, but I love working here so much, I turned it down. Now that's kind of like a hint, hint. Make sure you bump me up the next time merit comes around. But listen, I think it's again about relationships, knowing the path that your folks want to go, and you could talk to many people that have worked for me since my on the border days. I will never hold somebody back from getting to their full potential. And what I mean by that is I've had employees before come into my office and say, "Hey, I'm thinking about doing X, right?" And that could involve another job. And if I think that's the path that they need to go, I help them get there. And a lot of people are shocked by that. But I tell them, hey, if I can't get you to where you need to be here, then I'll help you transition somewhere else. I'm not here to keep and lord over people. I really want them to be the best that they can be. And if that's somewhere else, then I'll help them get there. And so I think having that kind of investment in people, they start to trust you, right? And just a real quick side, like I have a guy working for me now that this is his third stop with me. And I've helped him transition to two other places in between that. So over the last 11 years, he's worked for me 3 times, but I've helped him get 2 other jobs. So
Wow, you have a pretty terrific relationship with your people. Can you speak maybe a little bit to how do you communicate with them? How do you relate to them? How do you connect with them?
yeah, so with my direct reports, I have one-on-ones with them every week, and then I do skip levels every other week. And I don't have a set agenda. And I tell them, like, listen, this is your time. If you want to come in here and talk about jujitsu and soccer, I'll do that all day long. I love that. If you want to talk about you and your career, or you want to talk about anything else personal, that this is your time. It's not my time. And so that's one thing that I do. I have daily stand-ups where I keep it very short, like a 5 to 10 minute. We jump on the call. What are the pressing issues for today? So we're not trying to boil the ocean. We're not trying to solve some big complex problem. What is it we're focused on today? And then I have monthly staff meetings, and in those monthly staff meetings, I have what's called a lightning round, and everybody goes around, and it's 1 to 2 minutes. Now, some of they're more verbose folks may take 5 or 6 minutes, but that's fine, right? The rules are, hey, listen, I just want to hear from you. What are you seeing? Give everybody here an opportunity to hear what's going on in your world, and I think that kind of openness and transparency really builds this cohesive unit with us. At the end of my meetings, I have what's called a Roadrunner Award. And so the Roadrunner Award is I can nominate somebody else for something great they've done. And so everybody kind of goes around and they pick somebody out, like, hey, I want to recognize, Fee for doing this. And so we're building this recognition culture. And then my other fun one that I have is the Wily Coyote Award. And this is one where you can only nominate yourself for something stupid you've done last time we met. And listen, you've been around enough technology people. Like, we're going to definitely do something stupid from the last time that we met. So that's kind of been a fun little thing. We get to know each other a little bit better in those meetings. And then lastly, what I do with my directors, I try to get out at least once a year, where they'll come to my house. We'll go out somewhere, and we just get a whiteboard and say, hey, if you could change anything, or you could implement anything, what would you do to help the business? And we just start brainstorming, and it's some of the things we throw up there are stupid, and there's no way we'd be able to do it, right? And then other things we're like, wow, why didn't we think of that before?
That's brilliant. You're not only cultivating and nurturing your relationship with your people, you're actually nurturing their relationship with each other. To your point, building a cohesive team. And the idea, we talk often about the idea of, we can't be afraid of failure. And so this Wild Coyote award is hilarious. That's a very safe way for people to share their failures and actually learn from each other and learn from their mistakes.
And now I have to caveat this. If anybody implements this, make sure you tell them. I always do this disclaimer. Don't tell me anything illegal that you've done. Right? I don't want to hear that. That's a very important piece.
Maybe we could maybe shift the discussion to a little bit about technology now. As we think about the past year in terms of the pandemic, many have spoken about how just a fantastic amount of technology has been deployed in response to the pandemic. Can you speak a little bit to your experience over the past year? What happened from a technology stack for you, and kind of how are you thinking about technology?
Yeah, we had a wild year, and we had a lot of things fall into place for us. So from a technology perspective, believe it or not, we had no online ordering prior to March 2020. And so we rolled that out in a matter of weeks to the complete system. So you're talking 1,000+ stores. We rolled out delivery later that month. We rolled out curbside the following month. App ordering. We already had the app for your Healthy Rewards, but you couldn't order from it before. We also added curbside notifications within the app as well. And so we pivoted from February 2020. You had to come through the drive-through or walk in to order, and now we just opened the spigot of multiple areas that you could order from us. It was pretty wild, and we were a little behind the times, but we're careful with how we approach technology and what we're going to implement. And especially when you're doing it across 1,000+ locations, you have to thoroughly vet and thoroughly plan things out. And then go out and really sell the system on, like, why are we doing this? Are we doing it for technology's sake? Or are we doing it to improve your business and your bottom line?
It's outstanding to think about, a whole stack coming out of nowhere and across such a large system at scale. Any kind of lessons or learns, things that you would do differently?
It was pretty interesting. One of the complaints that we got back, or complaints, I guess, suggestions from our owners, was, hey, listen, when an online order comes in, the recipe shit just prints right out, and I can't hear it. I may be in the back doing whatever, because depending on the time of day and staffing, you're not always just sitting up front waiting for a shit to print out.
Mm.
And we actually have a proprietary recipe management engine that we've developed. And we sat around talking one day and we said, well, everything flows through there. There's an audio jack on that. Why don't we just make it play a sound every time an order comes in? And so we coded it and launched that within weeks as well. And that just came from a suggestion from a store owner, and then a couple of us talking about how we could possibly do that. And people were picking up $10 speakers, plugging them in, and all of a sudden now you're notified every time an online order comes in.
It's a pretty interesting blend of the role of technology and the operational role of what's happening in the restaurant too as well. Maybe could you share a little bit more about how do you make sure that the technology you're deploying aligns with the operational needs of the people in the restaurant?
So everybody on my staff has to go do a rotation in a store for at least a week.
Oh,
And the reason that I do that, and I've done this since I've been in restaurants, is too often when you sit in what some people will call the corporate office, you forget about what it's like to be in front of a guest when technology doesn't work, right?
mm,
Or something's going too slow. And so you really have to get out there and refresh your memory and do it once a year, be there on a $5 Friday to see how crazy it is. And now you'll begin to understand operations a little bit better. You'll have more empathy for the people calling in,
mm.
right? That, hey, this is a crisis to them, because you don't want to have to look a guest in the face and say, I'm sorry, I can't take your credit card right now, right? Or my POS is down. And so I think that one is a major one for me, is they have to go do the rotations. Now, any pilot that we do, whoever's leading it, they have to go out on site. They have to witness the operations. And like I had said earlier, we partner so well across all the different levels within ops and marketing that my folks are pretty in tune with how we're impacting the stores.
That's brilliant idea, actually. So it really sensitized the people firsthand and they understand exactly kind of what kinds of solutions they're building. This talks on the operations side. So what about on the marketing side? How do you think about technology and marketing?
Yeah, marketing, and I think from going to conferences over the past 3 years, we've really seen this convergence of marketing and technology. And shoot, sometimes you meet a chief digital or information officer, and you're like, now, what's your role? Are you marketing or are you technology? And it's been a natural progression. And I think for me, partnering with our CMO here, they make fun of me because I'm real big into omni-channel, and I'm trying to push multiple different channels and technology. And I have to be in lockstep with marketing on this because they're so important. They're a big piece of what we're doing. And so I think it's going to conferences together. We have a conference coming up here in September. The CMO and I are going. We're going to probably attend a lot of similar conferences and sessions together. And so I really do. I think it's that relationship, building it, and then ensuring that you're attending webinars, you're attending these in-person conferences together.
It's really interesting to see that we're kind of in an age now where the technology role of the CIO touches every aspect of the business, and it's really exposing you to really and having an intimate understanding of how the business works.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it's funny you mentioned business, and I think for years the nomenclature from technology was the business, right? You're talking about the business, and that's ops and marketing. And I have a friend of mine that he instituted for his entire staff. We don't say the business, we say our business partners.
Mm.
And when he told me that, like, that really resonated with me, that yeah, just like you said, Tim, technology touches everything. We're an integral part of what everybody's doing from an ops, marketing, finance perspective, development, and real estate, right? And
Mm.
so they're our business partners. They're not the business. We're all a part of the business together.
Can you, when we think about the restaurant technology stack, can you provide maybe some structure for how you think about it? I mean, from the very small to a large scale chain like yourselves, what are the buckets of technology in terms of the major categories of the stack, and what should we be thinking about?
Well, listen, I think from a point of sale and processor perspective, yeah, almost even online ordering has been commoditized, right? A
Mm.
lot of these are table stakes that you can take an order from anywhere. It's going to integrate. It's going to flow into my back office. I think the bigger thing that we're having to worry about now is, how do you pull everything that's in store and above store? How do you pull it into one view where I can start to manage my capacity? Because we still have a disconnect, right? I can feed tons of revenue in from all these different channels, but I don't know what's happening in store, and I can't always automatically regulate the spigot. Do I need to open it more, or do I need to shut it down?
Mm.
And so I think being able to get that really that holistic view between all the different channels, where it really doesn't matter where the order's coming from, I have full visibility into all of my volume. And so I think that's one. The second piece is going to be standardized APIs. We have to get to a spot where our partners and all the different vendors that we have, because a lot of people like to do best in class, right?
Mm.
That these guys are all going to have to be able to talk together, and we need to be able to have similar data sets of how we flow throughout the systems. And then lastly, and I mentioned this earlier, like, I'm all real big on the omni-channel. I think the magic sauce is going to come from who can create a similar UI UX across all their different channels and not frustrate their guests. Today, I'm sure you deal with brands on an app on the desktop. Maybe you want to do an Alexa order. Maybe you want to do a text message, right? Well, if it's different between all of those, right, and one's a little bit more frustrating, then, like, I've failed if I've opened up that channel without trying to make it as streamlined as possible.
you've put your finger on, I think, one of the really hot pain points right now is that customer experience. It's the customer's experience with your technology stack in all the different channels, and being able to navigate that and create a consistent and kind of compelling kind of brand experience.
Yep. Yeah. 100%. I mean, and from a marketing perspective, customers want you to know them, right? And so if I'm ordering on one channel and then I switch the next day to a different channel, as a guest, consumer, like I expect the brand to know who I am,
Mm.
right? I shouldn't have to go anywhere to load different points. My reward should be able to flow through all of those, and that's easier said than done. I mean, we have a lot of new tech out there, a lot of different companies and agencies tackling voice commerce, tackling the SMS text ordering channels, in-car ordering, right? And so you're going to start to have this data problem, and I think you're going to see more and more brands instituting, CDPs, so they can start tying together all those different channels and really know their guest and not frustrate their guest.
That's fascinating. It really speaks to the brand experience that comes from the technology stack that speaks there. There's a tremendous amount that can be done with technology. Could you speak to the other side of this, the liabilities, the risk? What kind of potential problems do you actually incur when you start to embrace all these technologies and become so dependent on all these technologies?
Well, listen, as soon as you start talking about guest data and I start capturing insights on folks that are interacting with me, whether they've given me information or not, right? You still have credit card information, you have hashes, and that starts to present a problem of ensuring that the partners that I bring in, that they are buttoned up from a security perspective, that where I choose to house my data, that I've done the proper compliance steps. And then the other piece is knowing, like partnering with your GC, like, hey, listen, we're in X number of states. Who do I need to worry about, right? You have California that has one set of rules, and then you're going to have some different. And I think, I don't know this for sure, but I could see us getting to the way labor laws are, right? Labor laws are very complex across different states and even some within counties. And you could see us conceivably getting there with a customer guest information, right? Like, hey, if your citizen is in this county, this is our expectation of what you do with their data. And so I really think it starts with ensuring you have the right partners, but that you're having these kind of conversations, right? That you're pulling in your GC, you're pulling in a head of security, and you're having those whiteboard sessions. What could happen? What are the risks, and what do we need to take into account?
You're speaking to some very interesting points here. It's not just about customer data, it's also about employee data. And to a large extent, that PII is actually quite a bit more valuable than the credit card data that hackers usually would focus on.
Oh, 100%. And it's funny, back when I did security at Grant Thornton, we always used to say that security was hard on the outside and gooey on the inside, right? And your biggest threats are typically on the inside. The outside. There's IDS, IPS. You have vendors that are constantly monitoring your security, and it's the internal, it's the GUI side that you didn't take into account. And that's typically where you'll probably get burned from a PII or data breach perspective.
From a roadmap, thinking forward now, what are you looking at? What are you paying attention to? Where do you see the next wave of technology opportunities in the restaurant industry?
I'm really bullish on what I talked about from an omni-channel earlier. I think the voice commerce is going to continue to explode. I think the folks that get in and do it right are going to have a lot of benefit over the next couple years. I'd really like to see Smoothie King open as many of these channels as possible, and really just give our guests the opportunity to choose how they want to interact with us, and whether that's Google Home, Alexa, text ordering, or driving in their car, right? You have a Sirius XM and you press that you want a Smoothie King and it takes you right there and you're able to pay for it from your car. Sounds pretty cool to me.
Listening to you talk, we're not finished with omnichannel. We're just going to have more and more channels and more opportunities to engage with the customer.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think you could even see kiosks making a comeback, but maybe kiosks that are voice driven.
Mm.
Right. I mean, I think the voice commerce is still so early that if you start thinking of voice as an operating system that could be applied to multiple different channels, and again creating that same exact experience, well, that'd be pretty cool. If you could order your smoothie from your voice to a kiosk, from your voice to your app, right, from your voice to Google Home or Alexa, and it's all the same experience, that'd be pretty neat.
And it could also have great implications for even customer sentiment too, as well, and being able to gauge satisfaction with the experience too. And like, Chris, for so many in the brands that are out there in the restaurant industry, there is no ability to have a CIO in your position, or not even an IT staff in many cases. Could you provide some guidance or advice for perhaps emerging brands that are kind of in that early stages, if you will, and in terms of how they should be thinking about the role of the CIO and kind of what they should be thinking in terms of their future?
Yeah, listen, compared to where we were 10 years ago, where it was very hard to find anybody that was a CIO at a restaurant brand, outside of the kind of the really big guys. It's nice now. I mean, you look across a lot of the different brands out there, 100 and up, and they have a CIO in place. 10 years ago, that was a senior director.
Mm.
They didn't even want to make you a VP. And it gets to the point that I made earlier that the technology was viewed as this overhead. They're not really part of the business. They're this necessary evil. And fast forward to 2021, and we're driving innovation. We are driving revenue. We're focused on the back end, and I think that's been the evolution of the CIO. That we go from techie propeller head to I'm a part of the business, and I have to understand it from an operations perspective, a back office, and then also from a marketing.
There's some broad shoulders, but using technology to drive revenue is a great way to encapsulate the nature of the role.
Yeah, and I'd say to some of the brands out there that are looking to invest in that side, uh, don't scrimp on the leader and the team that you bring in. I've seen too many over the years that recruiters will call and, hey, do you have anybody for this position? Oh yeah, I know somebody that's great. They'll be a perfect fit for you. Well, we don't want to give them that title. We don't want to pay that much. And I've seen them go through the cycles where they stick to their title and their pay that they want to bring in, and in 6 to 9 months they're frustrated. Oh, we have to bring somebody else in, and then everything else comes up. Right now the title is where it should be, now the pay is where it should be. Just do that investment right away. And in the meantime, there's a lot of good fractional CIO kind of restaurant specific people out there too. Utilize them for help. They can help guide and mentor and get you to where you need to be until you can make that investment in the leader that fits your organization.
Well, Chris, thank you so very much for that insight and for all the insights. This has been a very rich conversation that's given us much to think about. Everyone, I've been speaking with Chris Andrews, the CIO of Smoothie King, and thank you for your participation.